So this month I am super excited because I am off on holiday with my 3 dogs and my 2 adventure cats. So I'm going to start by packing. We've got lots of blankets and a towel for all those muddy paws. And then it's time to pack all the cats and dogs' outfits. These guys might be small, but they need a lot of stuff. They're all getting their matching coats. We are going to put in their lovely matching jumpers. Whenever you have 5 of anything, it really just adds up. Then we have their little fleeces and raincoats. Some jumpers. Some onesies to keep the cats nice and warm. Some more jumpers. I think at this point Dora's finding this all a bit much. The cat's coats. Their waterproofs. And then just some little accessories. These cats certainly have a lot of stuff. Then we're putting in some of their harnesses. These are the ones that the dogs and cats have matching. Their leads. And their little cute bows and collars as well, because they deserve to be looking stylish. We've got all their light up collars in case we go for any nighttime adventures. Then we're going to pack the dog suitcase with Dora nose. And of course, the main thing we have to pack for the dogs is all their toys. I think this really confused Dora. Of course, most importantly, Red Puppy and Naked Meerkat. These are my oldest dog's 2 old toys. He's had them his whole life and he doesn't go anywhere without them. Also going to be packing all the dogs' food. And of course, plenty of chicken sticks, their favourite treats, and a few extra treats as well. Now it's time to pack the cat's treat bag. So we're going to put in their dishes and their food. And some licky mats to keep them entertained. Lots and lots of licky treats. We never go anywhere without licky treats. These are essential, and as we'll be away for a few days, we need loads. And of course, some wet food pouches for the cats. Some little tins in case we go out anywhere. Then we're just going to pack up their daily treat bag. This is just a little case I use to take with me on adventures to keep all their treats nice and safe. A little sling for them, their water bowls and bottle, and some extra leads. The hot water bottles for the car for when it's a bit chilly. And then I am packing a little training book, but I probably won't get time for any training, but just in case, let's be optimistic. I'm also going to pack some wipes, because muddy paws. And then some toiletries, so just got some cat shampoo and no rinse shampoo. And then Cleo's eyes and ear stuff, because even on holiday she still needs to look her best. A few toys. The extending leads, more raincoats, and the coats which I plan for them to wear on the journey. And last but definitely not least, we have a brand new backpack for the cats. This is actually the bigger version of one they already have, but I wanted to get a bigger one, mainly because I now obviously have the 2 of them, and also because it means that Dylan, my older dog, can use it in case his paws get tired as well. And I like this one because it's got acrylic front and windows, which I think Cleo will really enjoy watching out when she's all tucked up inside. I think Dougal is interested in this as well. Just trying to get the plastic off the acrylic. I know some people find this really entertaining to get the plastic off, but I just get really frustrated at it. is. I really like the smaller version, so I'm excited to try the bigger version of this backpack. It works really well, and what I do love about these backpacks is also you can pop the back out and extend it, and I find this great that if we've stopped somewhere, like in a restaurant, it just gives that bit more space for the cats, but it's still their secure space, so this looks fantastic. And of course, let's just try it out with Dylan, and he fits perfectly. And I even managed to fit it all in the car and set up the back seat for the gang for the journey, so it's all nice and cozy with them, and even a little tray for the cats. Then we headed off, and our first stop was Southall Minster. This is a beautiful minster, really gorgeous. I actually went to school near here when I was younger before I moved away, and I remember coming here for communion, so it was really wonderful to see the place again. I think the cats were amazed by it. It is so beautiful. Cleo did want to get out and have a little look around. She is such a chill girl. I think she just liked sitting and enjoying this amazing place. She is such a good girl. I think she would have stayed here a lot longer if I let her. She definitely enjoys her inside adventures. Because as soon as we got outside, she decided it was time to head back inside the backpack. It was a bit rainy today, so we can't blame her for that. We then headed out to Sherwood Forest. This is, of course, the home of Robin Hood and his merry men. So we headed out into the forest to find the major oak where Robin Hood and his merry men lived. We all loaded up into the stroller, which I like to call the chariot, because they are a royal squad, aren't they? And we headed off into the forest. And here the amazing major oak is. I think because of the weather, we basically had the place to ourselves, which was kind of nice. This was so cool. I think Ebby was quite keen on climbing this tree. He is a little climber, but of course he's not allowed. And then Dylan and the two cats stayed in the chariot as we headed for a little walk. Cleo joining Dylan at the front there. Whereas Dora and Dougal strutted alongside. They are a bit younger. Well, I say they. Dougal's actually 10, but Dora's only 1. And the cats were all snuggled up, keeping warm on a rather wet day. But this was still great to get out and have a look. We did pop into the gift shop where they had these super cute costumes. Unfortunately, they were not cat-sized. We then decided to head off to a pet shop because the cats do love to do a bit of shopping. This is the Mark Centre in Mansfield, and it is amazing. They have so many different reptiles here. I think Dylan liked the look of this lizard. And I think the lizard was actually trying to get at the dogs and cats. We did have a little look at the cat section and the dog section and the small animal section, and then right at the back of the store we actually found some meerkats, which both the cats said hello to, and it was adorable because the meerkats were actually really interested in the cats. They definitely wanted to say hello to them, and Cleo definitely found a little friend here. These two were so cute together. Then it was time to check into our Airbnb, and this place is just beautiful. This is a cottage, a little outside Matlock Bath, and it is just the most adorable cottage, and although it was dark, it did have a lovely view. Then it was off out the next morning to explore into the caverns. This is Trek Cavern, and this place is truly amazing. It is dog friendly, and you actually do a little self-guided tour with an amazing audio tour, which meant we could take our time and just going around with the gang with no pressure or stress. The cat and dogs were fascinated by this place. It's their first time going into any sort of cave or cavern, so this was definitely a new experience for all of us. And you got to admire just how stunning this place is. Cleo did want a little cuddle halfway through. She is a little cuddly girl, and then she decided to ride on the shoulders, I think so she could get a proper look at everything. And this place just goes on and on. It is incredible. We even found some rocks for the cats to climb. And I honestly think Cleo would have sat and chilled here most of the day if I'd let her. I think she might have even fallen asleep at one point. But we couldn't stand around all day, and we headed out eventually. The dogs trotting alongside, and we eventually made it back out to daylight. And we actually had some sun today, which was super nice, although it was a bit chilly, hence why the dogs and cats have their warm coats on. Then we decided to head out for a nice winter walk, and we headed out Mantor. This was quite a climb up, so unfortunately I wasn't able to film too much going up, although we did stop for a quick snack. But eventually we made it right to the summit and decided it was the perfect place for a spot of lunch. I think Dylan was rather proud of himself to making it up the top. And then it was time to head back down. Cats were nice and secure in the backpack as it was a bit slippy, but the dogs did amazing walking alongside. It was just so beautiful here. Definitely had to be careful on the footholds or paw-holds. And then after a while, Ebby decided he wanted to get out. And this was actually Ebby's very first snow, which I don't think he was too sure about. He is definitely more of a sand boy than a snow boy. And Cleo was having none of it and just wanted to stay in the backpack, which is absolutely fine. And I actually thought here Ebby was going to get back in the backpack, but no, he wanted to stay out and explore a little bit, and I think he was actually getting a bit more confident in the snow. Dylan, on the other hand, has had snow before, and he was in no doubt of what to do, strutting about. He was definitely enjoying himself. He may be 13, but he's still got plenty of energy left and loves exploring. Dougal too was really enjoying the fresh air. He was having such a great time. And eventually we did get back down, and they had these really cool little caves there, which Ebby wanted to get into and explore. However, they didn't look too safe, so we decided to head up to our next adventure, which was at Lady Barra Reservoir. This is an amazing dam with a really large reservoir, which is just beautiful, and you can actually walk across the top of the dam. And of course the cat got plenty of attention as per usual, so we headed across. But Dylan has had quite a day, so he did want to be carried halfway through, which is fair enough at 13. Abby was enthralled by the water. And then going back, Cleo actually decided she wanted to walk for a little bit, so she had a little stroll along, taking her time as per usual until she just decided she'd had enough. So then she got carried across, but I think she liked being able to look across, although the dogs were a bit impatient when she just wanted to stop and admire the view. I think just admiring views is Cleo's favourite thing to do. You could pretty much leave her anywhere where she would just sit and chill. But we've got a lot to do, so we popped her on the shoulders so she could enjoy the view whilst on the move, and headed back across the dam. But of course, Abby wanted one more look before he left. This has certainly been a busy first day of our holiday, but it has been fantastic. I think Abby's ready to do some more exploring in the Peak District. He was actually the most awake out of all the gang on the way back to the Airbnb. Everyone else was absolutely knackered. I think they could barely keep their eyes open. We definitely had a busy first day. So it was time to head back to the Airbnb to crash out for the evening. Day number 2, and we decided to stay local around Matlock Bar. And we decided to head up on the Heights of Abraham, which is a super cool cable car. Dylan has actually been on this before, about 10 years ago when he was a young boy, but no one else has been on a cable car before, so this was a new experience for most of the gang. It was a bit wet and windy today. You could definitely feel that breeze. But we got to the top safe and sound, and then decided to head up even higher in this really cool tower they had. And looking out, you could just see how misty it was today. Definitely not as sunny as the previous day, but you know, we're adventurous who get out no matter the weather, and we don't let a bit of wet stop us. However, we did decide to head inside for a little bit just to warm up, and they had a really cool little cinema explaining some of the history of the place. So we watched some really interesting stuff and then headed around the little museum. Cleo finding another little perch. These two will honestly climb anything. And then they decided it was time to carry on, and Eddie not being his most graceful here. They even had a little Wombles exhibition going on. There was so much to do at the Heights of Abraham, even on a cold, wet day with 3 dogs and 2 cats. There's still loads we could get up to. Abby liked all the light in here. Then headed right up to the viewpoint. This was great as it meant the dogs could stretch their little paws a little bit. Although it might not have been the best day for the view because we couldn't really see a thing. And eventually it was time to head back. But I definitely think the squad enjoyed themselves up here. So it's time to queue up for the cable cars again. Dougal being such a good boy waiting our turn because we pretty much took up a whole cable car to ourselves. I think Abby was glad to be in the drive for a little bit. And after after a while, I think everyone just wanted a little cuddle. This was really lovely, just sitting with my dogs and my cats enjoying the view on a cable car. There's not much better way to spend your time. However, all too quickly it was time to jump off. The dogs did so well getting on and off. And we headed in to Matlock Bath to check the place out. Our next stop was a mine tour. The cats were all snuggled up in the backpack, whereas the dogs were exploring the mine with me. But after a while, the cats did wake up and poke their head out. I think they were quite surprised by where they were. Ebby in particular wanted to check everything out. This is normally the way. Ebby is the much more inquisitive one. I think if he had it his way, he would have just jumped out and started exploring the mine all by himself. But it was a super cool mine tour, which all 6 of us really enjoyed. And eventually we made it back to daylight. They even had this really cool bit where you could shift through for gems, but we were feeling a bit chilly, so we decided to head into the museum. Ebby loved it in here. There were loads of interactive displays which you could push buttons to make things move, which Ebby adored. And they even had a really cool mine shaft in here which kids could climb about. There was so much stuff. It was actually over 2 levels. Although I think Cleo was a bit disappointed that this was not a real fire. And Ebby definitely wanted this to be a real tractor and a real motorbike. But we still had a lot of fun. We then headed off into the aquarium. This was a really cool little aquarium with some super cool fish, which Ebby adored. We even found some fish which was bigger than the cats, which I think made Ebby a little nervous. But they had everything here, loads of different types of fish, axolotls, turtles. The whole squad really enjoyed it. And don't they just look adorable in their matching jumpers in the green? But of course, Ebby doesn't like to sit around, he wants to explore, whereas Cleo was very happy watching the fish. There was so many cool little things here. They even had this amazing hot spring. I think Ebby wanted to go and explore further, but he was not allowed. And this place is actually an old Victorian swimming baths, which has been adapted into an aquarium and amusements. And in the old swimming pool themselves, they now have koi, which was really cool to see. And of course, it is dog and cat friendly, and we certainly had a good time exploring the place. They also had this cool room of holograms, which don't really show up on video, but were really cool to look at. And some really cool lights, which Ebby adored. He was fascinated. Even Cleo came out for a little closer look. And then, of course, we had to finish off the day with some amusements. Ebby loves 2-penny machines. Although, once again, I did let him down by not winning anything on the claw machines. I'm sure these things are rigged, right? Ebby definitely wanted some ice cream, but he was not allowed, so instead we headed back up the hill, which is quite steep. I think by this point the dogs had all had enough. Luckily, Ebby had a rider in the backpack with Cleo as well, so he could rest his little paws. And we headed back to our lovely Airbnb. This was sadly our last night here, which is a shame because we've had such a good time. And the cats and the dogs have all made themselves so much at home here. It is really a lovely homely place, and I think Ebby in particular liked the view over Matlock Bath. Next day was our final holiday adventure. We headed out for a rather wet walk. It was rather wet and muddy, and the cats definitely did the right thing by staying in the backpack. Unfortunately, the dogs didn't have that option and they just trotted alongside. But eventually we did get to our goal, which was Lud's Church. This is a really cool place in the Peak District. It was beautiful. It honestly felt like we were in Jurassic Park or somewhere. We have had a fantastic holiday, and hopefully we'll have many more holidays with the cats. However, we headed back home for one more adventure of the month, and we headed to the Blue Pool Illuminations. We of course had to have the cats and dogs illuminated, so they all had their light up collars, and we strutted along here. This was amazing. This is like a forest around a lake, and all the forest is illuminated. It really felt quite magical. The colours were just so vibrant and amazing, and we pretty much had the place to ourselves, which was gorgeous because it meant we could just take our time and just really enjoy ourselves. Ebby was amazed by all the lights, and even Cleo was looking around. It was also really nice and varied, which kept it interesting. And of course, there's lots of good sniffs for the dogs. We did have a little break halfway round because, paws get tired. And you can't help but just sit and admire the place. And then, of course, we had to use their amazing bridge. This is stunning and looks out over the lake. I think Ebby loved this bit. You could see so far. It was just beautiful. It was then time to head back through the magic forest with another look at the lovely lights. Cleo even decided to get out for a bit, so they must have been good illuminations. This has been a great month of adventures. We've loved going on holiday, we've loved checking out the illuminations. And we'll be back next month with more adventures, so please hit that subscribe button, and we hope to see you again soon.